Hey moms, welcome to the show. I have a special episode today. It might be triggering for some people, but it just goes to show the power of using our trauma, our tragedies, and turning it into something good, allowing God to turn it into something good. So today I have Emily Spigelmire on the show. She's a wife, mom, and grandma whose life was forever changed 5 years ago after she discovered her husband's porn-fueled infidelity after 31 years of marriage. So after working extremely hard on healing and reconciliation, she and her husband's marriage is now better than ever. So today, Emily's going to share how she turned this devastation into a meaningful purpose. And now she's helping other couples, she and her husband together, she's helping other couples through sexual betrayal through their podcast, Beyond Broken Vows, and their coaching. So get ready. You do not want to miss this episode. Welcome to MOMetize Your Passion, a place for moms with big dreams and an eagerness to turn them into a thriving reality. Whether you're a mother looking to monetize your talents, transition from a stagnant job, or explore a fun side hustle, you're in the right place. I'm Caroline, wife, mother, and the visionary behind Tinseltown Mom, a platform dedicated to helping moms to embrace and pursue their God-given dreams. After interviewing nearly 100 celebrities for my platform, one common theme stands out in their success stories: passion. As a former actress, current writer, celebrity blogger, and certified life coach, passion has always been at the core of my journey. And through it all, I've discovered the power of honing our gifts, learning from our past, and using our experiences to uplift others. Join me on the show as I explore stories of celebrity moms and successful mompreneurs, uncovering the roadmap to their accomplishments. I'll also be sharing business and marketing tips to guide you towards tangible ideas for making money. Here, my hope is that you'll find inspiration from God, encouragement, and practical insights to MOMetize your passion. Hey moms, I just wanted to jump in really quickly to share with you an exciting announcement. I'm going to be releasing a new book soon. Now, this book is your ultimate guide to discovering your God-led passion, turning it into profit, marketing it, plus so much more. Now, if you want to stay updated on the release date, be sure to sign up for my weekly mailing list. The link will be available in the show notes. Additionally, if you're interested in joining my launch team, then you can fill out the application form, also found in the show notes. All right, moms, let's dive back into the episode. Hi, Emily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Caroline. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
I'm excited to speak with you. I know your story is going to help so many people. So thank you so much for being vulnerable today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. So for those who are unfamiliar with your story, why don't you just kind of share some of your personal journey of 5 years ago and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. You know, since I was married 31 years when all of this happened, there's a lot of life before that. But
Mhm.
basically, my husband and I had a really good marriage, I thought. We were very intentional about our marriage and our parenting. And, we were best friends. We did everything together. We got married when we were really young, and we were in church and loving God and learning about Him and serving Him all through our marriage. And so, about 5 years ago, when he confessed to me that he had committed adultery and had a porn problem, I was shocked. I It was something that I never thought I would ever hear come out of his mouth. And so that turned my world upside down. And a lot of crying, a lot of anger, a lot of grief and regret and confusion. All those things started to flood into my world. And it was a really hard journey, but he was all about repentance and recovery and reconciliation, which made it a lot easier for me to be able to come alongside and work on it with him and to eventually forgive him and, just let God give us a new marriage.
Mm.
He took what was broken, and he just made it all brand new. So that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot
Yeah.
of details that go along with our story, which we talk about in our podcast. But really, after a long time of being married, I was just my my feet were knocked out from under me with the news of infidelity.
Yeah. So I have listened to your podcast and you both are very vulnerable and there's a lot of layers to everything that you are even speaking about. So just to share a little bit more insight just for those listening because they may be going through this right now. And
Hmm.
as I mentioned in the intro, the prayer is that this pain that you went through is you're going to use your purpose to help someone else. So just for those listening, you said 5 years ago is when this all came to light. Like, did you have your suspicions before then? Like, how were you led to even find this discovery?
Well, yes, through our 31 years of marriage up to that point, there had been just a very few occasions where he had admitted some pornography use to me, or I had caught him with pornography, and we dealt with it on our own. We didn't go and get help for most of those times. There was a time when we did go to some marriage counseling, but it didn't really come out anything else other than those few things that I already knew about. And so there was a couple of different incidents throughout our marriage, but I just trusted him. I believed everything he said, and he was so believable. Whenever there was like something that maybe wasn't quite right, I asked him about it, and he had a perfectly logical explanation, and I just believed him. Why wouldn't I? And so, there was really nothing that caused me to think that there was something bigger than this. I actually really thought he did have a mistress, and her name was, Ministry, because he was in ministry when this all came out. And he was spending a lot of time doing that and kind of feeling like I was left behind a bit and, feeling a little abandoned by that. But I had no clue it could be something like adultery, infidelity. So I didn't find out until he confessed. So he was busted, actually. He was found out by someone else who told a pastor who told his ministry leaders, and then they confronted him. So they said, "You have to tell Emily." And so he came home and he did tell me the very, very, very tiniest little bit of it, which was devastating enough. But then over the course of a couple of weeks, he ended up spilling everything, which was incredibly, incredibly, unbelievably painful. And I pretty much just felt destroyed at that point.
Yeah. And I know you guys have a coaching business. Just for people listening who may not know if they should try to reconcile with their spouse, is it a matter of both people wanting to reconcile and wanting to be honest and move forward into the relationship? Because there may be some moms listening who, they want to get to where you are today, but maybe they're stuck because maybe their husband is not where he needs to be.
Yes, and it's really difficult if one spouse isn't willing to work on it, because even the spouse who's betrayed can hold resentment and unforgiveness in their heart, and that can keep the relationship from moving forward. And so, yes, if the betrayer does not want to do the work of recovery, unfortunately, you can't make him. You
Mhm.
can't make that spouse do it. And that's a very difficult thing. But you can always find healing for yourself. God is so sweet. He is so good. And, when we surrender to Him, He can make it all better in the way that He wants to work in our lives. And so we can experience freedom from guilt, from shame, from the pain, all the hurts, all the disappointments, the abandonment and the rejection, all of those things that we suffer from in marital brokenness. He can fix that in us, and we have no control over our spouse. But yes, if it's going to be something where the marriage thrives and heals and is reconciled, it does take two people, and it takes two people surrendering to God. We fully believe that you really can't do this on your own. You have to have God's help.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what were some other strategies that you guys used during this time to get to your reconciliation point?
Well, when it first happened, I set some boundaries, and that is just for my own safety, for feeling safe. Because when this happens, you're unstable. Your world is like unstable and you have no feeling of safety. And so I had to set some boundaries for myself. That looked like, him staying in the guest room, no physical touch, things like that. I also allowed myself to grieve. I didn't stuff it down. I really was able to let all of the emotions come out, and that is very important. I reached out for some support from some close friends that I have. I was terrified to tell them about this, but they were so warm and loving and non-judgmental, and all the things that I feared that would happen didn't happen, and they came alongside me, and I was able to have that support as I went along on my healing journey. So those are a few of the things that we did. He went directly into um, recovery. We went through some counseling, we went through marriage intensive, and he was the catalyst for doing all of that. I was insistent that I'm not doing that. If you want this to work, this is what you have to do. And he was very willing to do that. And so, we read books together on the subject and talked about it. We did a lot of talking. I did a lot of crying. And, actually, it was kind of a weird dichotomy. At some moments, I didn't want him to touch me. I didn't want to even look at him. And there was other moments when I just wanted to crawl up in his lap and have him hold me and tell me it was going to be okay. And, that happens when the person who you love and trust the most in the whole world is the one that hurts you the most. There's that tension there. And so I really had to allow myself to let those kinds of emotions come out too, and not hold him at a distance just because I was so hurt that I wanted to like see how it feels kind of thing. I had to kind of release that anger long enough to find some compassion and empathy for his side.
Yeah,
So
that takes a lot of humility too on your
it
part.
takes a, it takes a lot of going to Jesus and just begging for help. I couldn't have done it without him for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember how long the whole process was? The recovery and healing process?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we went to the disclosure, which took 4 hours, he went in front of our pastor and told him and me the whole story. Um, he told us that it was going to take a couple of years. And I was just like, "What? No, I don't want to be in this for 2 years?"
Yeah.
And then even later after our intensive and things started going, pretty well and we were working hard, I was like, "No, we can do this in a year. No big deal?" But it did. It took about 2 years really to get to a place, and right before our that 2-year mark, we did have a vow renewal ceremony, and that was really it kind of like was the moment where I felt, okay, this is a brand new marriage now. We've recommitted ourselves. It's a clean slate. We're moving forward. And I feel like the healing has taken place. Not to say that there's not more healing that goes on after.
Mhm.
And there's
Right.
triggers that come up and
Yeah.
there's, different issues that come up along the way that we have to deal with. But for the big enchilada, I guess you would say, it took about 2 years.
Right. And during this time, didn't you have your own business? You had a nutrition business, right? During these couple of years?
Yes, I had a nutrition business for about 20 years at that point, and, when this happened, I really lost my confidence, Tiralon. I just felt like I wanted to hide, from the world. I didn't wanna see people. I didn't even wanna go to church.
Mm.
I just felt so broken and just felt like everything that I had believed about my life was not true. Everything that I thought was good maybe wasn't, and so I didn't have any confidence in myself to go out and do this job that I had loved for so long. It was a network marketing job, and I was coaching people with nutrition and representing a company, a worldwide company, and I just pretty much let it all go. I kept in touch with my current customers, but I did not work on my business. I didn't build it. I just kind of let it go, and we kind of hunkered down for quite a while and just worked on our healing and recovery. Fortunately, our kids were grown and out of the house. So we did, and he is self-employed. So we had that flexibility. Um, and I know not everybody has that opportunity, but God has a way of making a way. Whatever your situation is, he can help you to move forward if you want to move forward.
Yeah. Now, during that time, were you thinking of things maybe in the back of your head, like, oh, maybe I could do this when I'm ready? Or like, did you have any passions brewing that you were thinking that you wanted to do?
Well, I knew that someday we would be telling our story, but I considered it maybe like in small groups at church or standing in front of the congregation to tell them the story. That was about the extent of it. But I really was feeling for my husband. He was pretty destroyed. And as we were healing, I felt like, I want to take over and kind of retire him. He's been in landscaping for 25 years and his body was starting to hurt. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do something where I can make enough money to just retire him and we could stay home together and, work on our little farm. We bought 5 acres after this happened. And, we have animals and we just love being on our property. And so I just had this pie in the sky idea that I would go online and look for something, which I did. I went to the internet and I found some courses on affiliate marketing um, and knowledge courses and things like that. So I kind of dove into that and spent a year learning and trying to build a business that way. And it just wasn't connecting. I was just skipping around from niche to niche, going, okay, what is it that I really want to say to people? What is it that I want to offer people? And I just didn't feel good about any of it. And I didn't really feel good about being on social media every single day either. That was draining me. And so God dropped this podcast thing right in our laps. And as soon as I heard about podcasting, which I never knew about anything about podcasting before. I didn't even listen to podcasts, but I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is what God wants us to do to tell our story. That's my niche. That's our niche. We could do this together. We've never done ministry together. We've always done ministry separately. So I was super excited that we could finally do something together to help other people who are going through what we just went through. And so it just was the light bulb went off and I went on really. And I said, okay, let's do this. My husband was like, let's go. And so that's what we've been doing.
Wow, I love that you shared that story because I'm always encouraging moms to pursue their God led passions because sometimes those passions could actually lead to a meaningful purpose.
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
sometimes there's fails along the way, and sometimes there's discoveries that you have to make. Just like you mentioned, it took you a year along this journey to try to
Hmm.
discover, okay, what is it, God, that you want me to do? And then how he just led you to the podcast. Like
Yes.
he's moving those passions along for a meaningful purpose so you can actually help other people. So I think your
Hmm.
story is so wonderful. So when you found this podcast idea, like we could do, like how were you thinking, okay, we can turn this into a business and I can retire my husband? Like what was that looking like for you?
Yeah, it was it was mainly me realizing that it's really not what I wanted to do. I was wanting to do it for him, but for me, I still wanted to be Lolly. I have 5 grandkids and I wanted time to be Lolly. I wanted to have time to be with the animals and to, just do a lot of other things. I didn't want to be working this full-time job, while my husband was retired. It started to lose its luster. And so we decided to do this together. And really, we couldn't do it separately because it's our story. I could have done a podcast on my own, but it wouldn't been as powerful as it is with his side of the story. And so, when we decided to do this together, it was like it just kind of happened. It was like this is what God has been waiting for me to do, to be brave enough, to be courageous enough to step out in faith and to tell this story that I didn't want to even happen to me and use it for his glory and to help other people. So once I decided to do that, it just kind of the doors opened up.
Yeah. And that's also something that I talk about is if it is a God-led passion, God will open the doors. He'll open the
Mhm,
doors and just let you see. It'll just seem so natural when it
mhm,
happens. Now, were you able
absolutely.
to retire your husband or are you still working on that?
Oh, no, we're still working on that.
Okay.
The podcast is going great. We are in over 70 countries, and we've got like 35,000 downloads, and it's really he is just taking this message around the world for us. And we just started our coaching practice back at the end of the year, so we're still working on getting full with clients, and so when that happens, we'll be able to both retire from our other careers and work on this full time.
Right. So now you have this coaching business, you coach couples together and you also coach individually. So I'm
Yeah.
sure the couples or individuals who've come to you, some of them have extreme circumstances. Now, how do you set the expectation for your clients that you are coaching them versus counseling or being a therapist in those sessions?
Right. Yes, that's a good question. We right up front tell our clients that the difference between those three, therapists, they go back into your past and they work on things that have gone wrong in, trauma and things like that. And counselors do that as well. And they help you move through those issues and find some resolution and healing. But as coaches, what we get to do is we briefly go over the past, but what we do is make a strategic plan for where they are right now to help them move forward into the future that they are hoping for.
Okay. And is it a package that you offer them, or is it just like a one-on-one or one-off type of coaching situation? What does it look like?
We do both. If somebody wants to do just once here, once there, that's fine. We also have bundles for individuals. We also have a coaching package for couples where they can come and we can meet with both of them. And then there's some weeks where we'll be separate, Johnny with the husband and me with the wife, and then we come back together. So we have a package like that, and we lead them through. We also have a program where we can lead them through the different stages of the recovery, as far as going setting boundaries and forgiveness and learning how to be rigorously honest and how healing apologies work, and all of these kinds of pieces that go together to um, make a marriage more intimate, make the trust able to be built. Things that were broken, we try to help them take the steps in order to repair that damage and move forward.
Right. So on your podcast, now how do you address misconceptions that people have about specifically pornography? Because there may be people listening to your show and maybe they think, oh, it's no big deal. My husband's looking at porn or vice versa. Like, how do you address that? Because I know that's a very sticky subject and a very dangerous one, actually.
Yes, there are a lot of misconceptions about pornography, and they a lot of people have an attitude that watching porn is normal, that everybody does it, not just for men. Increasingly, it's becoming more common for women, especially young women, who are trying to figure out how to please these men who have been watching porn, and they have these expectations that they can't meet, and so yeah, pornography like being no big deal. In fact, we have one of our podcast is that's the title. It says porn, it's no big deal. Um, it is a big deal. And a lot of people don't consider it cheating, which we believe that pornography is adultery. The Bible says if you even look at another person with lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery. And so pornography is sharing a sexual experience with someone other than your spouse. And so we believe that that is adultery. And a lot of people don't understand that. My husband didn't really think that that was true until he started going through recovery. Even though he was a believer, a Christian, he didn't connect those dots, and so it's very common. Some couples think that it can enhance their marital sexual relations, and they enter into this place of watching pornography together, and that is just very damaging. It leaves a feeling of being inadequate, not enough, expectations that aren't met. another misconception about infidelity is that some people think that it happens because their spouse isn't fulfilling their needs. And that is an absolute lie. I want to tell women out there right now that infidelity is not your fault. If your husband has committed adultery, it is not your fault. It doesn't matter what's going on in the marriage. There may be a lot of issues. It may be a happy marriage. Whatever happened to cause that spouse to go off the reservation and break the covenant vows of marriage, that's their choice. And it's nothing to do with the other spouse. Now, there are situations where people can feel like they're not getting what they want out of the marriage, and so then they make that excuse that I need to get that emotional need met over here, or that sexual need met over here. It doesn't matter. That is absolutely all on them. And then also infidelity, some people think it's a deal breaker in marriage. It's like if somebody cheats, that's it. It's done. And that's just not true. It's just a sin like any other sin. It keeps us, that sin is what keeps us from God, and it can be healed, it can be forgiven, it can be restored. And so people who are willing to work at that and surrender to the Lord in it can find something better on the other side than they even had before. It's amazing. It's just miraculous. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's good that you made it to the other side so you can be able to help other people.
Yes. Yes, it's
And then
exciting.
going back to the pornography addiction, how old was your husband when he first began watching porn? Because he became addicted at a young age. Is that correct?
Yes, and he was 8 years old when he first discovered pornography, and it really grabbed a hold of him, and he didn't tell anybody, so then that secret sin just grows, and the enemy comes in and just kinda knocks you off the course of what your path should have been. He didn't know he was an addict, he just knew that he was managing his emotions with, pornography and masturbation for most of his life. He thought when we got married that it would be, over. That would take care of that. He became a Christian right before we got married, and he thought that was going to take care of it. And then marrying me was like, okay, it's all good now. I have a wife. I can have sex as much as I want, and but that doesn't fix the root problems. That pornography is just pornography addiction is a symptom of something deeper, and his true addiction was the need for affirmation, validation, those kind of things. And that's how he was able to get that for himself. He didn't believe he was worthy enough to get it from me, that affirmation. He didn't believe that he was good enough for me. And so he went to where he thought he could get that.
And I wanted to bring up the pornography addiction because there's mothers listening whose kids may be dabbling into it and maybe they think it's not a big deal. But I just want to make sure they know it is a big deal. I did have a guest on the show years ago who wrote a book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. I'm not sure if you forgot her name. But anywho, the reason why she wrote the book is because her friend's son was molesting his siblings, and he was molesting them because he had actually formed a porn addiction. So the way he was looking at sex and sexuality was twisted. So that's why I just want to just put that little seed. So moms, if you're listening and your kids are struggling in this area, to look into that very seriously.
Yes, absolutely.
So just getting back to you and what you do, and speaking of moms, now what would you say to a mom who feels stuck in their journey of life and they feel like they can't pursue anything because maybe the kids, or maybe they've gone through a trauma that they haven't actually gone through or gotten healed from? What would you say to that mom who's just stuck right now?
Well, really, it all comes down to sticking close to Jesus. He is the only one that can really give us the freedom that we're looking for. Even if this is not a season of life that you expected or wanted to be in, you can trust God. You can release your loved ones into His care and just try to become the woman that He's calling you to be. I just want to remind everyone that there's this promise from Romans 8:28 that I love. It says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." So he has a purpose for each and every one of us. And we may not see that purpose very clearly right now, but if we are willing to stick close to him and follow what he says to do, he will reveal that to us, and we will be able to have that fulfillment of that purpose and that joy of being in God's plan, the plan he has had for us since we were conceived. And it's tough. It can be a tough road. There's a lot of circumstances that are very, very difficult to live through, but there's always hope with Jesus.
I love how you said that. That's so beautifully said. And just as we wind down the conversation, just looking ahead for your podcast and what you and your husband are doing together, what impact do you hope to make in the lives of your listeners?
Oh my goodness. We love our listeners, and, we just want hurting people to know that they're not alone and that there's hope. That's really our message. We want to inspire and encourage couples who are making the choice to stay married after sexual betrayal. And we do that through our story and the experiences of what we've learned through our process of recovery. And, we really believe that any couple who is willing to completely surrender to God can not only just get through this, but also experience a marriage that's made new and better than ever before.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily, for being on the show. Now, where can people find you if they want to listen to your podcast or just get in touch with you? Maybe they're looking for some coaching.
Yes, absolutely. We can be found on any major platform at beyondbrokenvows.com or Beyond Broken Vows podcast. And you can find us at coaching.beyondbrokenvows.com. And you can become an insider at insider.beyondbrokenvows.com if you want to get on our mailing list. And just email us if you want to just reach out and ask some questions at support@beyondbrokenvows.com.
I hope this episode blessed you. If it did, would you please do me a favor and share this with another mom who could benefit as well? As you know, this podcast is meant to be a blessing to mothers. So any support you can give would be so appreciated. Until next time.